Welcome back to Pitso on SABC Lehae. Let's now invite an international law jurisprudence legal theory lecturer at the University of KwaZulu-Natal to discuss the much anticipated ICJ interim judgment. And via Zoom, we've got Professor Christopher Givers. Professor, welcome to our show here on DTT and SABC Plus. Let's start by, I want to understand, what do we mean by interim ruling? What is it about?
Well, thanks very much for having me, and good morning to you and your listeners. So an interim ruling is the equivalent of what in domestic law is what we call an interdict. So a preliminary ruling saying we have a case that we need to decide, but we don't want to have the case essentially be decided by the facts on the ground before we get a chance to give it a hearing. So the court will issue a ruling that's meant to suspend whatever's going on so that the case can be heard. So in this case, South Africa said there's no point in having a ruling about genocide in 2-3 years. We need a ruling now that suspends the hostilities, that preserves the rights of the litigants, such that if we get a judgment in our favor, it's not a judgment that's futile because the genocide has already, for example, been carried out. So it's a preliminary measure meant to protect the rights of the litigants.
So let's look at South Africa's presentation at the ICJ. Do you think we stand a good chance of winning the case? Professor, were you able to get that?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Looking at South Africa's presentation at the ICJ, do you think we stand a good chance of winning the case?
I think at the provisional measure stage, I think we made a very good case, and I think we couldn't have made a better case. That being said, this is an extraordinary thing we're asking the court to do. Extraordinary in the sense that one of the measures we're asking for is the order of a ceasefire, essentially, on the part of Israel. But I think we've made the best case we possibly could, and I'm fairly confident we'll get some provisional measures. So the other ones involving humanitarian relief and the preservation of evidence and so on and so forth. It remains the question whether or not we get the big one, which is an order by the court to Israel that it must cease all military operations.
So what happens today? Are the judges supposed to vote for the verdict?
So the judgment will have already been decided by now and will be read out in court. And then what will happen will, depending on how the judges go, obviously, it's a 15-member court, but there are 2 ad hoc judges. So there will be a majority judgments. And then there might be judges who agree with the judgment but want to say something extra. And there will, I'm sure, be some who dissent. So those who don't agree with the majority and will want to say something as well.
So we understand that each countries have ad hoc judges, with South Africa having Justice Dikgang Moseneke as well as Israel having Aaron Barak. What are the judges' roles and what is their influence?
So this is quite a unique feature of the International Court of Justice, right? So normally you don't get to appoint your own judges. In this case, because it's an international court and it involves very significant international issues, the statute says that if you don't have a judge on the bench already, you can appoint one specifically for this case. And so when you appoint an ad hoc judge, as we have in this instance, ourselves in Israel, they sit like any other judge, right? So they sit, they decide, they vote, they are, for that case, all intents and purposes, a regular judge. But of course, they're appointed by a government for a specific case, so they have a very persuasive role behind the scenes. But we would expect all the judges, including the ad hocs, to exercise their office without fear, favor, or prejudice.
And then is there any possibility of seeing a split since we are having 17 judges from different nations? And, the issue of political influence, can that be an issue as well?
Look, I think undoubtedly there will be a split. I can't see a unanimous court, particularly in this case, but it's seldom the case that you have a fully unanimous court. But I think the political issues, yes, obviously there will be influence, but we should recognize that these are judges that have, for the most part, spent their life in international law, working in international law. They have commitments, they have written things that can easily be raised against them if they make a decision that seems to be contrary to how they understand international law. So they are not averse or above politics, but there is a distinctly type of legal politics that makes it difficult for them to make, for example, a completely ridiculous or rash decision.
So Professor, we often hear that a case of genocide verdicts, it can take up to 3 years. What do you know about this?
So I think we have to be clear here that there's two different courts that are in place. So there's the International Criminal Court, which would prosecute individuals for genocide, and there's the International Court of Justice, where we are today, which is about state responsibility. Both take a long time. In fact, the International Criminal Court might take longer. But certainly, I think in this case, we're in for, when it comes to the merits decision, a couple of years. And that's because not only do we have this provisional measures hearing, which has happened on a very expedited basis for the court's usual timescale, but we will probably have objections to the ruling, and objections to the jurisdiction of the court. Then we will have a merits phase. So we are in the range of years. So for example, the last time South Africa was before the court, in that case, apartheid South Africa, it took from 1960 until 1966, the case.
And then as we wrap, Professor, let's say South Africa gets victorious today. What would that mean? Does it mean there's going to be an immediate ceasefire?
I think this is the difficult question because even though this decision would be legally binding on the parties and would create obligations for all the Genocide Convention signatories and arguably all states, the enforcement of that legal obligation still relies on the political arms of the United Nations, including the Security Council. So what we will see is an immediate response and a lot of pressure placed on states to do the right thing, to fulfill their legal obligations. But in terms of immediate enforcement, I think we've already had an indication from Israel that they will not be deterred by the court no matter what it says. And I think some will hold out, but I think a number of states will have to revise. International lawyers who advise them will be telling them now, if you get a decision that says this is genocide, even on a provisional basis, we need to change our policy, stop supporting, stop funding arms, take more concrete action to prevent the ongoing crisis.
Professor Givers, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
That was Professor Christopher Givers, the International Law, Jurisprudence and Legal Theory Lecturer at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, giving us a breakdown of what is likely to happen this afternoon when the ICJ hands down its judgment. If you have just joined us here on SABC Lehae, DTT and SABC Plus, we're coming to you live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg. I am Chanduko Ligege. For now, let's have a look at your headlines at this hour. The International Court of Justice will today deliver the much-anticipated interim ruling in South Africa's genocide case against Israel. The ANC National Executive Committee is expected to decide what to do about former President Jacob Zuma when it meets this weekend. Zuma has angered senior ANC members by openly campaigning for Umkhonto weSizwe party. The inquiry into the conduct of suspended High Court Judge Nana Makubele continues today. After numerous postponements, Makubele finally took the stand at the Judicial Conduct Tribunal yesterday to answer to a claim that she violated the separation of powers principle by allegedly being both a judge and board chair of PRASA. Citizens for Coalition Change leader Nelson Chamisa has left the opposition party in Zimbabwe with immediate effect. For now, it's time for us to look at what's trending on X. As expected, the ICJ judgment is one of the trending topics, and in a short while we're gonna look at what people are saying. And you know, as you've been following this story, it seems like you know, that Springboks moment where South Africa, or South Africans as a whole, were very proud about you know, what the team has done. So this time around, the Springboks team is the South Africa legal team, because people are just rallying behind the team to see you know, them doing well. So in a short while, we will see what you are saying on X. Let's take a look at what you are saying on X. Mossab Hassan says, will the International Court of Justice condemn Hamas for committing war crimes? Another one comes from TK Nala, who says the International Court of Justice is expected to rule in favor of South Africa, which is representing the Palestinians. Therefore, South Africa ought to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for halting the Palestinian genocide in Gaza committed by Israel. Another one comes from Lai Kef, who says today the International Court of Justice will show us if international law exists or is just a figment of our imagination. May the scales tip in favor of justice. Sitale says South Africa expects the International Court of Justice to rule today on whether it will grant emergency measures to stop the war against the people of Palestine. Shafkat says South Africa stood against Israeli genocide in Gaza and proved morally far better than 57 Muslim countries, including Seoul Muslim Nuclear Power, OIC, and Islamic Military Counter-Terrorism Coalition. Whatever International Court of Justice decides today, SA played her part bravely. And that's what you're saying on X. Thank you so much for interacting with us. And let us continue with Pitso. The inquiry into the conduct of suspended High Court Judge Nana Makhubele continues today. After numerous postponements, Makhubele finally took the stand at the Judicial Conduct Tribunal yesterday. She is being probed following a complaint by the civil society organization #UniteBehind that she violated the separation of powers principles by allegedly being both a judge and board chair of PRASA, a state-owned entity.
Suspended Judge Makhubele kicked off her evidence by forewarning that she intends to dispute statements by witnesses before the Judicial Conduct Tribunal. The question of the so-called 1 January 2018 start date dominated the greater part of Thursday's proceedings. The question placed before her by the tribunal is why did she not report for duty on the 1st of January 2018, which was the appointment date, in the President's announcement of November 2017.
The evidence of Judge President Mlambo, you did not report for duty on the 1st of January 2018. And to take it further, he says that until you had a meeting with him and his deputy, Ledoba, you were speaking about the Water Tribunal, outstanding work that you had to do in chambers, and there was no mention at all about PRASA. They had to extract it from you after saying newspaper articles.
In response, she gave evidence that Judge President Dunstan Mlambo already answered this question by the complainant.
Judge Mlambo says, yes, I know she's not here, and this is the reason she's not here. She has arranged that she will start in April, and actually, I've asked the President to redetermine. I'm rephrasing the letter. He uses the word to revoke. So there's no dispute about that.
The tribunal probed that if this is the case, was she led to believe that an original appointment of a judge could be amended? And if this is so, why would Judge President Mlambo have her rostered in the 2018 January roster?
To me, it may indicate one thing only, and that is Judge Mlambo, JP, had prepared that roster in anticipation that you would start on the 1st of January 2018. Is that not the logical thing to accept? He wouldn't prepare a roster with your name there on when he knew that you wouldn't be there.
Makhubele gave evidence in response that there was never any intention to start on the 1st of January 2018. Makhubele will continue with her testimony on Friday. Kani Mapanga, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now on matters related to literacy, there is a shortage of books written in African languages. Ambani Africa is an app developed to help children learn different African languages by making animals come to life through augmented reality. First, let's have a look at this clip.
Zenke, your friendly guide in the Ambani world. So, what's Ambani.Africa all about? Well, it's like a treasure chest of super cool stuff for learning and fun. We've got loads of languages, including English, isiZulu, Sesotho, Swahili, Spanish, and many more. Imagine hundreds of videos, games, and digital books all in one place. In the watch section, you can catch our awesome Ambani shows and learn loads of neat stuff. Play is where the fun games live. And in read, you'll find fantastic digital books. And guess what? We even have these amazing books that come to life with a little magic. They are called augmented reality books. We've got you covered on all kinds of topics, from math and tech to life skills and languages. Ambani Africa is perfect for kids up to 8 years old. And don't worry, it's totally safe. No ads here. Plus, it's been checked and approved by EdTech Impact. Teachers, we've got something special for you too. In the Teach section, you'll find super cool lessons made by teachers. For moms and dads, you can add up to 3 kids and pick what they learn. Ready to start our money adventure? Just click the...
We are now joined in studio by Isabella Mutobi, who is the head of content at Ambani Africa. Isabella, thank you so much and welcome to Pitso here in SABC Lehae. Let's start with augmented reality. What is it about? Because as I was watching the video and when I read on the website, it does say that Ambani Africa uses augmented reality, you know, in this project or this app or book. Please tell us more about augmented reality and how it enhances the learning experience.
So augmented reality is a technology that allows the content that we've created to come to life. So basically, something like this, as small as a card, can pop out. So what we've developed is that when you are on our app and you're learning, you'll use your phone or your tablet and you'll hover it over the image, and the image will come to life and it will say the words that you've chosen in the preferred language that you've picked as well.
So now let's talk about the languages that you have, because we believe it's African languages. Perhaps you can just name a few.
So obviously we've picked our South African languages because we've also realized that content in our African languages is very minimal. So, you know, obviously it's the Zulu, it's Afrikaans, it's Setswana, Sesotho, Sepedi, we're delving into Ndebele and Siswati and the likes.
I mean, let's go to the why part. I mean, we know that English sounds cool, but then why did you say, okay, you know what, we want to preserve African languages. Why is it important for you to come up with an app that preserves the language of Africans?
So our CEO, Ambani, she was doing a thesis on education foundation phase and just resources out there in our home languages. And she found that there's not a lot of that kind of content allowed to teach foundation phase children. I mean, English is great, but there's kids out there who can't even, who learn English at home and then, or they learn in their mother tongue, and then when they get to school, they struggle with English. So we felt that technology now, because it's taking over, it is a great way to also create content for kids to learn in their home language, but also to preserve the cultural being of being African or Africa as a whole. I mean, growing up personally, I mean, English was my first language, and I struggled to learn Sesotho. And I'm learning, but my kids, they speak Sesotho better than I do because I've given them access to content that allows them to learn and play games and, you know, be able to write. And so Ambani definitely has allowed the possibilities of enriching your cultural background and your language speaking in a better and exciting way. I mean, hey, a game in Zulu, why not?
I think this is a great product because, you know, most people leave their homelands to come to the city to work here, and then you find that the surrounding of Johannesburg, for instance, is very urban to a point where, you know, you don't really get a chance to speak Tshivenda or Xitsonga. So when you have this app, I believe it helps kids to learn the language. And also in the initial stages of the app, you had 4 languages.
Yes.
So now that you're studying on 14, it means there's a high demand of this app. Tell us about that. Are people really wanting this app, and perhaps if there are other languages that you're going to add in the near future?
So we've got our main app, which is the Ambani VR app, which works with these cards and our books. And then we've got a new platform called Ambani Africa. And we've realized that a lot of schools, because now the department has said, hey, we need to engage more with schools doing Sesotho or schools doing isiZulu as a second language. Teachers who are figuring it out, who've never taught a language like that, don't have access to those kind of content. So we have been able to develop these working platforms just so that we can help and engage with parents and teachers who are still trying to, you know, find resources that will help them at the moment. So our main app, Ambani Africa, is where the games and the worksheets for teachers are, so they can download them, use them in the classroom. The songs and the videos, we've created playlists, so a child can watch a playlist of like 15 videos and have a learning outcomes and learning about your body, learning about animals and the likes yeah.
So tell us who you're working with. I hear you mention the Department of Education, but also I believe there's a lot of research that comes into this, because I've seen one of the languages there is Mandarin.
Yes.
And then there's Igbo, which is spoken in Nigeria. So who are you working with? Who are some of the contributors into this initiative?
So we've got a lot of translators who translate for us. We work with a lot of teachers. So we've got teachers who are in-house who create the curriculum so that we're able to create content that is across the board, that will be for a learning purpose. And then also in terms of the language, they will translate it, and we get voiceover artists who will either voice the song or the animation that we've created. So we work with a lot of content contributors that are part of our platform.
And I've seen you've got a few books there. Perhaps you can just take us through maybe 3 or 2. Maybe there's a parent who wants to, buy this.
Yes.
Just explain to us maybe 2 or 3.
This is our 8-set book set by Ambani Africa, and on these books we look at an array of themes, from feelings and verbs, my body, animals, alphabets. And on the app, when you download the app, you're able to select the language, and everything that you do from then on is in that specific language. So, and again, these are in AR, so they come to life, they have sound, you'll hear the horse going, hee, it's very interactive that kids will love to keep coming back to it. And we're working on a lot of new developments. So this book set is going to be even 10 times better in the next coming months.
Interesting, because kids love sound, they love visuals, and it's good to hear that you're still working on developing the app to make it more appealing even in the near future. So let's talk about how easy it is for parents to use this app, because I believe, yes, it's for kids, but I believe parents can also use it at home to teach their kids.
So definitely. So with our www.ambani.africa platform, parents are able to also, as I said, we've got worksheets, and we've got like a very interactive way they can, even as an adult, if you want to learn the language for the first time, you're able to use the resources that are there. So parents are able to sit with their child. Let's say they do, so as I said, we have playlists. They can open a specific playlist today. Let's say we're doing animals, and they can go through the playlist with their children. The same with the games. The games are very interactive. You click and you match the word, or you find the word, or you listen to the story, and then you do an activity at the end. So those kind of things where kids and parents are able to do it together. And I mean, as a parent, I'd love to see what my child is doing. So I'd love to understand where they are. So, when the teacher comes to me and say, oh, they're not well with verbs, then I can say, oh, on Ambani, we've got a verb section. Let's go and look at doing verbs today. So, you know, it's a matter of also understanding where your child is in terms of the language as well.
Last question, 10 seconds.
Yes.
Where do I find the app?
So the app you find on the Play Store and on the App Store, and then also on web we are at www.ambani.africa, and that is our main website. So you can log in, and there's a 14-day trial where you have access to everything for 14 days, and then obviously there is a subscription fee. Isabella
Mutobi, thank you so much for joining us here this morning. That is the head of content of Ambani Africa. That is an app that encourages young people to learn their languages in a fun way.